Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new to my channel or simply not yet subscribed, my name is Brittany and definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button. So today we're going to be talking about the Black Forest. Now this is one of these places that I would love to go and visit. Centuries ago, the Black Forest was wild, untamed, and really only known to the people who resided there. It's located at the southwestern tip of Germany. And people who lived in the forest were known to be strong and stubborn, and also very proud. The place is shrouded in so many different legends and mystery. It has a dense growth of conifer trees that block out a good bit of the sun. And it also has a fog blanket that will often roll in and cover the forest in a mist. And this kind of just leads even farther into the mystery of the forest. The woodland is at the heart of a 372-mile route that's said to have once been home to magic mirrors, fairy godmothers, princesses, and goblins. But before we get into the legends of the forest, we're going to talk a little bit about the history. Even though times were changing a lot industrially, it took a while for that to actually reach the people who lived in the forest, minus the railroad. There were farmers and loggers, as well as skilled wood carvers, world-renowned clockmakers, glass blowers, music box makers, and hat makers. The inns and guest houses were known for their cleanliness and how good the food was, and just how polite and friendly the people were. People who resided here loved welcoming strangers to their village. And it's actually said to be the home of the Black Forest cuckoo clock, which was invented there by Franz Anton Ketterer around the 1730s. In 1632 though, right in the middle of a 30-year war with Central Europe, the bubonic plague struck the Black Forest. And by 1633, Black Death had claimed more than a quarter of the Ambermergau's residents. Now the villagers made a vow to perform a passion play. And this was held on a stage that was actually built over the bodies of the people who had died due to the Black Death. Since then, every 10 years, the passion play is held, with an exception of 2 times. 1 because of government interference, and 2 because of war. The 42nd passion play was said to be held May through October of 2020. So they've really kept up with the tradition. Nazis also took a connection to this forest. When the Nazis came to power, they capitalized on myths that the forest held on its good reputation. Now, during the time of National Socialism, the forest became ideologically charged. According to the ideology, the Germans were connected to the woodlands through the nation's founding myth, which was the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. And the story says that Germanic tribes led by Hermann slaughtered the Roman legions in the forest, which caused Rome to abandon its plans to take over the lands east of the River Rhine. The Nazis played off the myth, saying how German forests and people were one and the same, that they were connected. And this was to exclude groups like Jewish people who were not deemed to be one of them in their eyes. Now, when World War II ended, the forest once again became a place of respite, and under the trees, people could forget about the violence and all of the destruction. It was essentially a refugee. Today, most villagers depend on local markets to feed their family, but there is quite a bit of lore that surrounds this forest, said to be home to nymphs, goblins, and witches, just to name a couple. Near the forest, it is said that a courageous prince awakened a sleeping beauty from her long slumber with true love's kiss, and that Rapunzel let down her long golden hair from a tower so that her rescuer could climb up. The Sabober Castle is actually said to be home to a specific beauty that slept for 100 years for being awoken by her prince. And the Grimm's brothers, the ones who did a lot of fairy tales that are quite twisted, they were actually inspired by the forest's legends. So they kind of took those legends and made them their own. Now, some of those tales are Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and Hansel and Gretel. They based their stories off the legends from the people who resided in the forest. Now, let's get into some of the other legends that this mystical place holds. It's said that the water nymphs are supposed to live in the dark depths of the Mummel Lake at the foot of Hornus Grind at Bull Baden. Then there's a legend of Fremendsburg Mountain. A small cloister had to start on the southern slope of Fremendsburg Mountain from 1426 to 1826, so 200 years. It was named Clodder. Now, the spiritual health of the people were not only the monks' concern, but also their earthly peace. For example, when a ghost made trouble on the mountain, it raised fear and anxiety among the villagers with all their rumblings. So the monks would actually go and catch the troublemakers and put them in sacks. Then they would carry them to poltergeist graves, where they would remain banned forever. Another legend is the Windeck Castle in the village of Cabell Windeck. Down in the valley, we're all working on their spinning. Girls would tell each other of great things that would happen in the castle above. That a hen dug a deep, wide trench, or as the Strasburgers advanced, and that a young hunter perished there because of his love for the beautiful young woman of the castle. In Varnholt, tradition that has been passed down for 200 years, generations. It's said that the last grape harvest of every growing season must be brought home by ox cart. If that didn't happen on the last harvest, that it will make the entire grape harvest turn into sour, undrinkable wine. And in the Yerburg Castle, there's myths that say fair ladies would appear in the night, and that there were strange bowling games on the first Monday of every month, and that there was this mysterious vault that no one has ever found, that we know of, that was filled with the most delicious wine. The village of Itterbach has its own myth. In 1232, Herman Margrave of Baden gave his villagers of Woltelsburg, now known as Ittersbach, and Wolmersburg to the convent St. Gallen. As a settlement, Wolmersburg disappeared, but no one actually knows why. It's said that during Advent, a headless horseman on a white steed rides in the cemetery over the terrain of the destroyed village of Wolmersburg. In the village of Kappelbrodach, there is an old legend surrounding the town's namesake family. High on a hill says Rodet Castle for centuries. Legend has it that centuries ago, a beautiful daughter of the family fell in love with a peasant boy. Her father forbade her to marry him. The girl ran away to the other side of the valley and took up life as a hermit in a huge outcrop of rocks in the middle of the mountainside vineyards. The outcropping was known as Dasenstein, and over the years, the townsfolk came to believe that the girl was a powerful good witch who watched over their blessed grape crops. The Mumsley have a legend of a king who lives beneath the water and dragged women down to his underwater kingdom many years ago. And then there is the legend of Lockersburg. There's a Celtic gravesite and temple up in the forest of Lockersburg. It's said that you can feel the spirit of the Celtic people at night, and you can actually see the ghost gather, but only if there is complete silence. There was a tale that I wanted to talk about because it's a Grimm Brothers tale that was inspired by this forest, and that is Little Red Riding Hood. Now, if anybody knows anything about fairy tales, and not just the Disney version, so Disney essentially took these fairy tales and turned them into what we know, where there's always a happy ending, and You know, some bad things might happen. It might be a little twisted, but things work out in the end and good always wins. But that wasn't exactly the case for these. Now, Little Red Riding Hood, as we all know it, is about a girl who would bring a basket of food to her grandmother's house. Now, she gets there, she sees the big bad wolf dressed in the grandmother's clothes, and she's like, "My, what a big nose you have, and it's better to smell you with, and well, what big teeth you have, and it's well better to taste you with." And then ultimately, Little Red Riding Hood and the grandmother end up okay in the nice version. But in the actual version of Little Red Riding Hood, it's far more twisted. So the young girl gets an order from her family. You have to go across the forest, take bread and milk to your grandmother. Now, the forest is a dangerous and risk zone for young people. It's said that this was to be like a rite of passage for Little Red. Now, in the Little Red Riding Hood legend, the main risk is the wolf. And it's said that the wolf is said to symbolize wilderness and the irrational. So Little Red manages to cross the forest and happily enters her grandmother's house, who receives her in bed because she's sick. Now, the grandmother tells the girl to keep the bread and milk and to eat the meat that is prepared for her in the kitchen. Red Riding Hood agrees and devours it because she's very hungry, and then she feels full after eating. After this, she obeys her grandmother's next order, which is incredibly weird, and she's told to take off her clothes, piece by piece, and burn them in the fire, then to lie down in bed next to her. The young girl agrees, which is very strange. I don't really understand why she would agree to this really strange request. But then she discovers that her grandmother is actually a wolf. And then the wolf informs her that the meat that she just ate was her grandmother. Okay. So at that point, she has committed a horrible sin because it was cannibalism, and besides that, utterly disgusting. But then the wolf later devours Little Red. So it is quite a twisted tale, but all of the original fairy tales are. But there is just a lot of mystery and darkness that surrounded this forest. But in all actuality, the community and the culture there was very pleasant and uplifting and positive. The people were friendly. They literally built a world all their own. I'm curious if anybody who has lived there did ever run into the nymphs or the fairies or any of those creatures, or to see the castles there and the legends of the princesses who slept for so long. Let me know if you guys have ever visited there, or if you live around there or live there, I guess. That'd be such a cool place to go and visit and kind of just take everything in. But definitely make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, I love you guys. Bye.